Welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger. Joining me on this show is Chief Todd Fordahl of the City of Angels and Cato, his canine. Welcome both of you.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Now, Todd, you've been on before, but Cato is making his first appearance.
Yeah.
And if you could just tell me a little bit about him real quick. How old is he?
Sure. He's a little over 2 years old. He's a Dutch Shepherd. He's been a member of the police department for a little over a year, and he is cross-trained for both narcotics detection work as well as general patrol work.
And he's your buddy. You guys do just about everything together, right?
Yeah, he goes to work with me every day, and he's at home with me when I'm not working, so yeah.
But he's pretty much a police officer too, right? He's been sworn in. Is that it at
Correct.
the city council? Okay.
Yeah.
So he takes his job seriously, I imagine.
Yes.
Good. And it must be, I imagine, nice to have a companion like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're a good tool for us in law enforcement, and we put them to work on a pretty regular basis, both for the narcotics detection side of it, and then as well as looking for people that may want to try and take off from us. So it's a good tool to have. Absolutely.
We'll talk more about Cato a little bit later in the show. For those who haven't been introduced to you, I was hoping you could just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, starting with where you grew up and how you made your way to Calaveras.
Sure. Well, I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area in Mountain View, Santa Clara County. Started out in law enforcement there with Los Altos Police Department, Santa Clara County. Worked there for about 4 years, and then came up to Calaveras County in 1998. Came to Angels Camp. Worked there initially for about 4 years. Came over to the Calaveras County Sheriff's Department for about a year, and then came back to the police department in Angels Camp as a sergeant in 2003, I believe, and then served in that capacity up until 2011, and July of 2011 is when I was appointed as a chief.
When you were in high school, kind of a kid, did you know that law enforcement was the path for you?
That's where I got interested in it. Yeah, I had actually junior high, I had a family member, became a police officer in Fremont, and I went on my first ride along with him in junior high, and from that point on, I was pretty much hooked, yeah.
Pretty much hooked on it?
Yeah.
Were there good opportunities to kind of go along that track, or did you have to kind of make your own way?
It was a combination. I mean, I became a reserve officer initially first in Los Altos, and I go back a little bit. I was an explorer, started out as a police explorer with Los Altos PD when I was in high school, and then became a reserve officer later after I took some college courses, and then from there, decided to go ahead and put myself through a police academy, regular full-time police academy, and finished that, and then got picked up full-time by Los Altos when I've completed that, actually just before I completed it. So
nice.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. At that time, there were quite a few opportunities in the field, so and I didn't have a very difficult time. I was pretty fortunate.
So, I mean, if you're thinking about going into law enforcement, it seems like there are so many options. Like you have the CHP, you have a police officer, you could be a sheriff, or any number of other things. So how did you kind of end up saying, I think police is the way I want to go?
I actually considered CHP, and actually was in their process at one point while I was a reserve officer with Los Altos. And I don't know, I guess because of my experiences, having worked there, I kind of knew the job, what a police officer's job is. Sheriff's Department, I hadn't had a whole lot of exposure to. Most of the Bay Area sheriff's departments and a lot of the other agencies or sheriff's departments in other areas require some custodial time, and I wasn't really interested after the experiences that I'd had already going to a custody facility and working in a jail. So CHP, I went through their process and made it all the way to a hiring list, but then there was a freeze in the early 90s is when I was on that list. And so I basically had to either decide I was going to continue on with the law enforcement, the city police, or wait for CHP. And I opted to go ahead and apply with Los Altos, and I got hired on full time. And at that point, then it was kind of I was notified by CHP that if I was still interested in pursuing it, I was going to have to, because of the length of time that had passed, that the list had been frozen, I was going to have to retest and go through their entire hiring process all over again, and it's pretty extensive. So it was at that point, it was an easy decision for me to make.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. So how did you hear about Calaveras and decide to move up here?
Well, initially, I was actually trying to get further north, up around Grass Valley, Nevada City area, up in Nevada County. And I wasn't having a lot of luck with the agencies up there. I didn't really know anybody, didn't have an in, so to speak. And sometimes that does help if you do know somebody, or they can at least test somewhat your abilities, your reputation and whatnot if you're not from the area. And I had a friend of mine that I went to the police academy with, who his father was working for the sheriff's department in Calaveras County at that time. And he was working for Angels Camp Police Department, and he told me that they had an opening. So I applied, and I came out and did a couple ride-alongs, and here I am. So.
What were your thoughts about Calaveras County when you first saw it?
It was a big change.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big change. I mean, Los Altos is a small city by Bay Area standards, for sure. It's only like 28,000 or 29,000 at that time anyway. I don't know what it is now, but there's so many cities that kind of run together on the peninsula and the Bay Area that it's kind of busy no matter what, And here, when I first got up here, it was a big culture shock because, the town at that time, I think Save Mart stayed open until like 10 o'clock or something, and after that, the town pretty much rolled up, and there was really nothing going on. And it's still that way somewhat, to this day. It's very, very quiet at night most of the time. But after a couple of years of getting used to it, I guess I just decided that this is where I want to be. One of the things that kind of decided it for me was I met my wife here, so I have established a family here now, and I have children that I'm raising, and I wouldn't want to go back to the Bay Area to try and raise not only raise a family, but trying to afford to live on what officers make would be difficult. It would be a challenge. So,
when you aren't on the job, are there certain things you enjoy about Calaveras in terms of hobbies or activities?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the outdoors. So I mean, that part of it was easy for me to get used to. I mean, I've always been one that enjoyed fishing and camping, and so this area is it's perfect for that. I mean, you can't get any better, and so that part of it was another deciding factor. But really, the biggest issue for me and the biggest reason why I would want to stay and not go is because this is where I decided I want to raise my children. So.
Absolutely, and it's a great place. I mean, I think almost everyone agrees about that. It's a really good place. And part of that is because we're relatively safe here. I'd say we're very safe here, and you're kind of part to take credit for that for sure, along with the Sheriff's Office and CHP.
Sure.
So you've been here for quite a while now. You have a family, settled down. At one point you said you popped over to the Sheriff's Office for a while. Mm-hmm. What led you there, and then what led you back?
At the point when I left, we were going through a leadership change at the police department, and it seemed like there was more opportunities at the sheriff's office, and I wasn't sure what the future was going to hold for the police department in terms of who's going to be leading the department, and we had lost a couple officers, and obviously I didn't help that situation by me leaving, but I just decided that I was going to take advantage of the opportunity and at least try it out, and I did, and I enjoyed my time at the sheriff's office. I had a really good time. For the majority of the time that I worked there, I was assigned to work up in the Arnold area, and I really enjoyed it. But I also, the opportunity came up to come back to Angels Camp as a sergeant. And one of the goals is obviously as you progress through your career to experience different things and have more responsibilities and do, function in more of a leadership role. And I thought that was a good opportunity. They'd already hired a chief for Angels Camp, and he was established, and he'd brought some good people up with him when he came. So I made the move back, and I've been happy to be part of making some positive changes in the department, because there's been a lot of changes over the years.
How did you end up having the opportunity to become chief?
Well, it wasn't planned. It wasn't something that I had initially looked for. I was a sergeant, and I was actually in management training. The chief at the time had a philosophy that he wanted all of his department members to be trained at least one level up to what their actual position was so that they could function in different capacities, and it was actually a really good opportunity to get some good training. And I was in the third week of that class, the third and final week of that class, when the city council at the time decided not to renew the current chief's contract. I received a phone call, and I was asked to come back to the city. I was in like the second to last day of the class, I believe. So I drove back, and at that point I was asked by 2 city council members if I would be interested or willing to function in an interim chief capacity while they figured out what was going to happen next, and which I did. I agreed to do, and I did that for about a year and almost a year and a half, like a year and 4 months, I think. And at the end of that time, I was approached again by city council members, and I was asked if I would be willing or interested in continuing on in the appointed position. So I agreed to do it at that time, and I've been there now for almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. Wow, totally. Really sounds like it wasn't really something you were expecting though at all. So.
I wasn't. I was totally taken by surprise, and but in a small department, I mean, we don't have. I mean, as far as administrative level positions, at that time we had 2 sergeants and a chief. And so as a sergeant, I was reporting directly to the chief of police, and there's no in between. So it was kind of a logical choice based on the staffing levels in our department and the size of our department. So, but yeah, I wasn't planning on it at all. It was not something I anticipated.
Walk me through the basic responsibilities that you have as chief of police.
Well, basically as a department head, we all the department heads in the city report directly to the city administrator.
Who's Michael McHatton?
Correct. Yeah, and we have a team philosophy, so we work together real closely with the other department heads and with Michael McHatton. And Michael McHatton, as the city administrator, is the person that kind of presents issues or budget requests, those types of things to the city council. We as department heads provide, staff reports and information to Mr. McHatton, and then he in turn presents that information to the council. We as department heads are obviously available in council meetings and whatnot to ask, if the council wants to ask us direct specific questions, we're always able to do that, but Mr. McHatton is the administrator. So we work together to make sure that everybody's taken care of. If there's a need in one department, budgetary need for a certain piece of equipment, and somebody else has a surplus in their budget that maybe they're not going to be spending that money, then we can work together to try and solve those issues. And it's a very nice environment in terms of that. I mean, very close-knit, small group of people that work good together. And Mr. McHatton has really emphasized the team philosophy, which is good, and supporting each other. So there's no favorite chosen one, so to speak. It's everybody's equal, and everybody's expected to. All the department heads are expected to keep him informed of what's going on day to day, so that he can make decisions and recommendations that are needed to help keep the city and the different departments running the way they need to run. So there's that aspect of it, which is always interesting and challenging at times. And then there's the personnel issues, managing the different people within the department and scheduling and making sure that all training issues and personnel issues are handled. So that's a big part of the job.
How many staff members do you have?
Well, including me, there's 8 sworn members, and then there's 1 full-time office staff. Back in 2009, we lost a couple part-time positions that we had. We're hoping that maybe we can regain at least one of those part-time positions in the near future, because there is a need. I mean, we have the full-time office staff person is wearing different hats. I say office. She's not delegated entirely to the office. I mean, she runs our office for us, but she's also serving in many other roles as well. She's a city PIO. our public information officer. She's functioning as a field evidence tech for us. So if we have a crime scene where we need some assistance collecting evidence or gathering evidence, she's on call for that. She'll come out and assist with those things. She manages all the records. She's also managing the property and evidence room. So, I mean, she's just one person. You can imagine just the things I've rattled off. That's a huge responsibility, and she works very hard and keeps our department running, basically the office part of it running. So we need to look at that in terms of lightening some of her workload by maybe bringing on some part-time help. But the other officers, being small, we don't have dedicated investigators or dedicated staff to do different things that a lot of departments do. Mm-hmm. So our officers are all provided specialized training to function in those roles and act and fill in when needed in different areas. So there's a lot of concurrent responsibilities besides just being police officers that go along with working in a small department. So myself included. I mean, I'm functioning in the administrative capacity, but I also am responsible for covering the streets and going out working patrol, hence the dog, and doing the things that I do. So
you're not just a desk warmer.
Correct,
you're
yeah.
out there doing it just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of budget right now, are you okay in terms of you have what you need for the staff to meet the current needs in terms of keeping the Angels Camp safe?
Yes, we do have the staff that we need. We added a couple positions recently. One of them was an addition, a straight addition to staff. I mean, it was a new hire that new position that was created, and we hired a police officer to fill that position. That position was filled back in January of 2013. And then we hired another officer to replace an officer that went out on a retirement, and that person was hired in July of 2013. So
what's crime looking like right now in Angels Camp?
It's gotten a bit of an uptick. I don't have percentages I can give you right now, but I could tell you that that we're seeing more property crime, more narcotics related offenses, a lot more DUIs. And part of it's because we have some staff that's dedicated their interest to that area and DUI enforcement. But there's always that, there's an uptick with prescription medication abuse. It seems like, along with the continued alcohol abuse. You'd think with all the education and information that's put out there. I mean, there's DUI checkpoints on a regular basis, and there's MAD, campaigning all the time, and educating people on the dangers of it and whatnot. And then there's school functions every 15 minutes that we're involved in that we do. Mm-hmm. But there's still a element out there that just seems to ignore all that and goes out and decides to get behind the wheel. And so those are issues that we haven't had a lot of. We haven't seen an increase in crashes, thankfully, but there has been definitely a big uptick in the DUI arrests, both alcohol and drug related. So.
Do you get any people coming down from Murphy's, like from all the taste rooms up there, come through? Is that an issue, or is it just people getting, buzzed at parties and then trying to drive afterward? WorldMark maybe?
Yeah, there's been WorldMark definitely. I mean, I'd say it's a mix. I'd say it's not. I can't say that it's more one than the other. I mean, there's the local population that is trying to get somewhere after they've been to a party or a bar or whatnot. And then there's the people that are coming into town that are visiting, that are staying, one of the hotels or the resort you mentioned, and they're out, having a good time on vacation, and they're not really thinking about the consequences of what they're doing. So, yeah. But all I can say about that is it's really important, whether you're local or out of town, make sure you have a designated driver. Don't get behind the wheel because it's not worth it.
Another challenge, not just for Angels Camp, but for the county as a whole, is AB 109, the realignment of prisoners from state prisons back to the counties, and fewer people are being sent to state prison. That a lot more people are staying here, and then probation, as well as you and the sheriff's office, have to kind of keep an eye on these guys. Now, probation really is supposed to be doing it, but that doesn't mean that you don't come into contact them on quite a regular basis. So, how is AB 109 affecting your department?
Well, as far as the local population, in terms of the post-release community supervision, people that are part of the AB 109 population, the local population hasn't really affected us. I think right now, out of the 30 or so that are on the local list, there's only one that's living in Angels Camp. within the city limits. And so that's not really an issue for us. And the sheriff's department does have a deputy that's assigned to work with probation. They're both probation and the sheriff's department that are, they're working together and doing a very good job and doing the local checkups on the local population and making sure that everything's copacetic and happening the way it's supposed to be. There's still challenges that occur occasionally from time to time, but for the most part, it's running pretty smoothly. The issues for us that I've seen are from the out-of-town population, post-release community supervision population from, for instance, San Joaquin County, Stanislaus County, that are a little bit more comfortable because of the larger populations in those counties. They don't really have the tail or pressure that they might have had otherwise. They're not being watched as closely as they have been in the past, and they feel a little bit more comfortable coming up to our area to commit various crimes and do different things. And we've run into those people, a couple recently that were from San Joaquin County that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit just based on their intentions and their really openness and willingness to admit that they were here basically to commit crime, and they were looking to cause problems. So that's more of my concern in terms of dealing with that population, is that there's an element that they're not being watched as closely as I would like, or I think most people in law enforcement would like.
So it's not just that we have our own in-county people. People are bleeding over from all over the place, and there isn't really anything to prevent a post-release community supervision person from cruising up to Calaveras County from pretty much anywhere, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I will say, San Joaquin was really responsive. They formed a team made up of various law enforcement agencies within the county that all they do is go out and look for people that are in violation of their terms and conditions of their post-release community supervision. And the first individual that we contacted, we knew where he was staying. He wasn't supposed to be up here. They sent a team up within a couple of days and grabbed him and took him back to San Joaquin County. That's great, but the problem is, in the meantime, while they're here, what are they doing, and why are they here, and what's their intention of being here? And those are the concerns that I have, and the real safety issues that we as police officers out there dealing with that population, or people in public in general, need to be concerned about.
There's a committee of people who kind of make decisions with regard to AB 109. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but like you and probation, the sheriff's office, and the DA, and all those people get together. And I know that there were some rocky times in terms of coming to an agreement about how the funds would be distributed and how to keep people safe. What's your read on how that collaboration is working now? And I don't know if you remember the name, but
it's a community corrections partnership.
There it is.
Yeah, and it's actually improved dramatically. It was it's pretty common knowledge now. There was a grand jury looked into some things, and they did some made some recommendations. They published a report, and those guidelines are being followed. And since that all happened, things seem to have been running really smoothly. Probation is still obviously the agency that's been designated as, the lead agency in running it and managing it. But the partnership is made up of the various, the sheriff's department, DA's office, public defender's office, myself, and then I believe behavioral health is involved. So there's all these different agencies that are making recommendations and voting on different things, and it seems to be working well now. And I'm excited that I guess the new probation chief, I haven't met him yet, but I did receive a phone call from him, matter of fact, earlier, and he's going to be we have a community corrections partnership meeting this Friday. He's going to be present at that meeting for the first time, so it'll be good to meet him and kind of get his take on, where he wants to go with things and what we're going to do. But since all that happened, all the kind of negative stuff that people were hearing about, it's progressed into a much more positive experience, at least from my perspective, and things seem to be moving forward in a more positive way.
Excellent. Before we talk about Cato, I wanted to just ask you, you said there's a little uptick in crime. Are there any specific strategies that you might be following just to kind of knock that back down in general? And I guess, put people at ease? It doesn't sound like it's anything too crazy, but.
No, and it's mainly, like I said, property crime related, and then narcotics offenses. And obviously, I would love to have. We have basically 2 dogs that are assigned to the police department. They're both cross-trained for narcotics detection. One of the things that we do is we kind of unannounced put together what we call a night on the town, where we'll go out and we'll establish a list of probationers or PRCS people or parolees, the people that we know or are frequent clients of ours that we need to pay attention to. And if we have the ability to go out and do searches and be proactive, utilize the dogs to try and make our presence known, and to let it know that, let it be known that we're not going to just sit back and watch it and tolerate it. That seems to have some impact. Obviously, the frustration with, the way the jail population and whatnot. I mean, it doesn't always have the impact that we would like. But sometimes, just the mere presence of us being there and doing what we do is enough of a deterrent to slow it down, or maybe force it into another area where they're going to, not be so closely watched. So for us, I mean, it's mainly paying attention to what the trends are, and then trying to be proactive about it, which can be a challenge because of the staffing levels that we have, but we do make it work. We got a good group of people that are focused and dedicated, so that's kind of what that's my game plan. Got it. And it's worked so far. So
a couple minutes left. How long did you train with Cato to get him ready to go?
Well, he certified. I actually raised him from a puppy with the intention of getting him certified as a police dog. Obviously, when I first got him at 8 weeks old, I had no way of knowing whether or not that was going to happen. But I worked with a trainer. We trained weekly for, I'd say at least a minimum of 8 hours a week, if not more, up until the point of certification. And then at a year old, he was able to certify for narcotics work. And then about another 4 or 5 months later, he was certified for general patrol work. So a lot of work going into it, but it's a lot of fun. It is, there's ongoing maintenance training that's required that is time intensive. The courts want to see a certain amount of training, a minimum or average of 16 hours a month, that's documented. And then obviously there's more above and beyond that, because every day that you're doing something with a dog, you're training with them. Mm-hmm. So we have the 16 hours of formal documented training, and then everything else that we do on top of that. It's pretty easy to do the day-to-day stuff and keep it going, because it becomes a normal part of your day, like sitting down at your desk. With him, I'll put some training aids out for him, or do some obedience training and whatnot to get him a little bit sharp, so that he knows what's going on. And he knows, I mean, dogs are very intuitive when it comes to, especially when they have a job and they know what their job is. When it's time to get ready to go to work, he knows it's time to get ready to go to work, and he's got his game face on and it's ready to go. So,
Chief, I personally want to thank you for what you do, being out there and managing that team that keeps the city safe. So thank you, and I'm glad that you brought Cato along as well.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.